So now that we have TBL user, our database, and our users table, we need to figure out how we're going to connect our application to the database table. Now to do that, if you've taken contemporary programming with me or even with another professor, you may have covered the technology of ADO.NET in using the SQL connector, the SQL connection, SQL command, and SQL data reader or data adapter. Well, those are all kind of considered to be base level functionality or core functionality for connecting to a database. They're all perfectly functional things, and if you need to do real low levels things where you're needing a lot of performance and control, that's still a great thing to go to. But to expand our horizons and look at additional technology within the .NET universe, we're going to utilize what's called the entity framework. Now, if you ever heard of an object relational mapper, an object relational mapper or an ORM is a piece of software, a library, that helps you to map between objects that you create or classes in your application and database tables or views within your database and make it so that it's almost a seamless process of creating an object in your code, populating it with data, and then saving it to the database. And likewise, taking data out of your database tables and turning it into objects, being able to then present that data or manipulate it in some way and then save it back to the database. So what we're going to be using is the entity framework to act as that ORM or object relational mapper for our application. Now to do that, we actually go out and we download the entity framework from a repository called Nuget. And the reason for that is that the entity framework lives out of band from the rest of the .NET framework, and that was a decision on Microsoft's part that they wanted to make this tool set be something that can be updated and revised without having to wait for a full framework release. So to download the entity framework, you want to right-click on References, choose Manage Nuget Packages, and you'll get the Nuget Package Manager that will show up. By default, it may come up on the Installed option. What we want to do is go to Browse, and under Browse, you may see as your top selection is the Entity Framework. If not, you can click in the search box and type Entity Framework and hit Enter, and the Package Manager will go out and search for it. So we're going to choose Entity Framework at the top. At the time of this recording, version 6.1.3 is the most stable release. There are additional beta releases that are being developed currently. I know version 7 is coming out in the near future, but we will stick with the most stable. So we'll go ahead and select it, and then come over here and we'll click Install. If you are using a different version of Visual Studio, this may look a little different to you. And that's just because in 2015 they made some significant enhancements and changes to the Nuget Package Manager. If you're using another version, it may have popped up in a window, or you may be getting a slightly different experience, but your areas to work within the application should all look the same. So I'm going to go ahead and click Install. And what's happening is it's actually going out and connecting to the Nuget repository and then downloading the entity framework and any dependents that it may need. Now this is just asking us to review the changes that it's going to be installing the entity framework, and I'll click OK. There's a license from Microsoft that needs to be accepted. I will accept it. Now this process can take a little while to perform everything, so there's different packages being added and downloaded and extracted and installed. So once all of these steps have completed, the entity framework will be installed into our application. And you'll see here that under Installed, there's a whole collection of existing Nuget packages that we've installed or have come preloaded as part of this template. There's also updates that can be made, and these updates are published by either Microsoft, or if you're familiar with some of these more open source solutions such as jQuery, these are all packages that can be downloaded and updated from within the .NET framework. So I'm not going to worry about upgrading things because I'm going to stick with the template just for ease of instruction. But if you do want to update your project, feel free to do so. So now once we've installed a Nuget package, we can see its reference or its package itself underneath references. So if we expand here, you'll see that there are a whole collection of different DLL libraries or references that have been brought into this project. Some of these came as part of the ASP.NET MVC template, and some of these are because of Nuget packages that we just installed. So in our case here, here's the Entity Framework and the Entity Framework SQL Server libraries. These libraries allow us to utilize the Entity Framework within our application. So that is the Nuget Package Manager and Entity Framework.